Brad, what's going on, man?
What's up, buddy? How are you?
Dude, I'm crushing it right now. I just got back from Denver. Spent a couple days out there. Now I'm back
Nice.
in Nashville, and life is good, man. What have you been up to?
Awesome. Yeah, just been busy. We've been busy, man. Work has been good, consistent.
Hmm.
Um, we're actually looking at a big project up in Michigan for Ford. Have you ever heard of them?
Little startup company.
Little startup.
You haven't told me
Yeah,
about
they
this yet.
actually
Can you
I know.
give me
I
some teasers
know.
here, or maybe we have to
I
talk offline.
know.
This sounds exciting.
Yeah, they need like 80 units.
What?
Um, yeah, because they're building what they're calling the Oval
Office.
Kingdom or something. I don't know. I know Oval Office, but yeah. So, and they want to, it's in a remote area. They want to be able to house their crew there. So
That's
yeah,
exciting.
had a long conversation with them a couple days ago. But Saturday, I'm flying out to California for a conference in San Diego.
What conference
Um,
is that?
that is the CHPA conference, Corporate Housing Providers of America.
That'll be
So
good.
yeah, doing that. Flying out Saturday, and that should be fun.
Yeah, dude, you're
Got
taking
some
me
good
to a
meetings
conference
lined up.
with you in Indianapolis. But I want to go to the one in San Diego. I don't want to go to Indianapolis in the winter. I want to go to San Diego in the winter.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, part of it is I'm having a meeting with one of my meetings is with somebody I wasn't sure that you'd be able to go to that. His name is Gavin Newsom. You heard of him?
Yeah, right. You don't trust me in a meeting with him?
Yeah, I don't trust myself in a meeting with
I was
him
about to say
actually.
I'm usually the guy reeling us back in. It's not me, it's you.
No, that would be no bueno.
That's funny. Well, dude, today we're going to talk about some kind of real life, real impact stories. We're not going to mention names and stuff like that because we protect the people that we're working with and serving. But at the end of the day, our why at RV Housing Group, it's really about helping these people that have been displaced. Even like when you talk about Ford, it's a little bit different than an insurance client, but the heart is still the same. How do we serve these people? And I
Yep.
was even thinking about this in general. And I'd love to get your thoughts on this because you're entrepreneurial and business minded, all this kind of stuff. So before we dive into it, but the difference between selling and serving, I've been thinking about this because you've been in sales a long time, even before you started this
Yep.
company. And a lot of people struggle to sell. Like, I don't want to push myself out there, whatever. But if you change your mindset from selling to serving, how do I serve people well? I've got a product or service that I believe in and I just want to talk about it in a way because I know that it helps people. And so from your
Right.
perspective as an entrepreneur, business leader, salesman, all those things, how does that impact just your approach to what we do, whether it's Ford or an insurance client where we're not necessarily selling them our services, but we're trying to show up and serve them?
Yeah. So that's good. I think foundationally, if you exist to serve people, then you'll be able to sell them things. You know,
Right.
I think that if it's the other way around, you have a real hard time. Because people see through that. People see through the salesmanship.
Exactly.
The overselling. And at the end of the day, like what sales is really I'm selling myself, right? I'm selling what I stand for, what I believe in, and and service and serving people is a huge part of that for me, but that's not for everybody, right? So,
Hmm.
in sales, it's often just close the deal, whatever I got to do to close the deal, right?
Right.
And what happens with that mentality is you're closing the deal and moving on, right? You're closing the deal, so it's all about money, right?
Hmm.
Money. How can I make money? The problem with that mentality is eventually, that's going to be figured out by people, right?
Right.
He's just all about money, or they are just all about money. She's just all about money, and they don't really care about taking care of people, right?
Right.
Where if you can exist to really serve people and take care of them, then the money comes anyway, you know?
Yes. Yes.
Um, and so, and that's us, right? I mean, I don't, in what we do for sure, I don't try to oversell, overpromise, underdeliver, that kind of deal. I just try to speak truthfully about who we are, what we do, why we exist,
Mhm.
and what we're gonna do for you, our client, right, and your customers. And I think the proof is in the pudding, right? I mean, that's why we're still in business. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, there's so many businesses I think that would be in our space, especially because it's pretty cutthroat. That would not be in business anymore, and that's because they're selling, they're
Mhm.
not serving,
Mhm.
right? And what I have done is my thing to our clients, when I'm pitching them to trying to onboard new clients is just give me a shot and let me prove to you, right? Let
Mhm.
me prove to you what I'm telling you. And I think that I just thankfully I have an aura about me that is authentic, that they're like, I may be able to woo people and help them, and like really help them to see what I stand for and what I'm trying to do with my business. And if they do business with us, what they're going to get and all of those
Mhm.
things.
Mhm.
Um, but I think really ultimately the proof is in the pudding, and you don't have long, right? You don't have your leash is not very long there.
Right.
Because they're hearing the same spiel from everybody, right? I mean, I'm not
Right.
really any different. I may just be a little more believable potentially, but it's so important for me to back up what I'm telling them,
Right.
and I think that's what's really set us apart. And I think that if you have that mentality of serving people and really caring, man, it's so hard to fake that, right?
Mhm.
Um, that just doesn't last. It's unsustainable, I
Mhm.
think. But if you have that in your DNA to really care about people and take care of them, um, then the proof will be in the pudding, right?
Yeah.
And then the sales and growth and all those things happen.
Yeah, it follows. Well said, man. I love that. Well, share a story about someone that we've been able to serve, just because we do love stories around RV Housing Group because that's our why. Hearing stories of people we've been able to help,
Yep.
and is there any stories that kind of come to the top of your mind, either recently or when you first started the business that really represent your why and why we do what we do?
You know, I think it's I think almost every family that we deal with,
Yeah.
it reiterates our why, you know? Um, are there some that stick out to me? Yeah, probably because their house burned to the ground and
Right.
they barely escaped, and you know, um, just a
Hmm.
crazy tragedy.
Or
Um,
maybe you lost an
but
animal or something. I mean, something. A lot of
yeah,
times, where people the
oh
trauma is pretty deep.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, we just had a family that they lost an animal, and I mean, they were crying on the phone, and it's understandable. It's so because when we're involved, it's so quick after this happens. That
Sure.
this is not like they've had weeks to grieve and process and everything like that. I mean,
Yeah, they're putting the
we're
pieces
pretty,
back together.
yeah, we're there pretty quickly in the aftermath. But I think really, each situation is unique. Um, but so often each one has their own level of tragedy to it,
Hmm.
and I think that that's why um, that's why we exist, man. We exist to really serve these people, to take care of these people, and to be to be the hopefully the brightest spot in their situation, right? I mean,
Hmm.
they're dealing with insurance companies, they're dealing with contractors, they're dealing with remediation companies, and
Hmm.
and you know what I'm striving for is for them to say at the end of all of this that, what, RV Housing Group, you guys really stood out.
Yeah.
You really stood out to us in our situation, and we're super grateful to how well you took care of us.
Well, that you just led me perfectly into the next question. I was gonna ask you, what are some of the feedback that families typically give after staying in one of our RVs on site? I mean, or maybe some of your favorite feedback that you've heard, when people are actually moving back into their home. I'm curious.
Yeah. Um, I think that the best feedback is it's not as bad as they thought it was going to be.
Right.
Because when you're dealing with this tragedy, right? Whatever that is, and you're having to move out, you have so many emotions going on. You have so many things you're trying to keep track of, and all that stuff, right? And maybe you have kids on top of that, and life doesn't necessarily stop, and all of those things. Um, I think that uh, sometimes people aren't 100% sure that staying on their property in a trailer is the best thing for them, right?
Right. It's almost like they
Um,
have to do it because of circumstances, and they're like, "Well, take a risk, but I need to be close to my property, but I don't know."
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And they're talking to other people, right? What should I do? Talking to your friends, your family, like, what should I do? And everyone may have an opinion, right? And so you're just trying to process all of this. It's like information overload, man. You're trying to make the best decision for your family, but you have all of these options, and you end up landing on on-site housing and staying in an RV, and you're not 100% sure that that's the right decision you're making at the time, right? And I understand that. But I think that ultimately we hear so often that they're glad they did that, right?
Mhm.
And they weren't really sure at the beginning. And I go back and I remember, hearing about conversations from the team or whatever, and I'm like, "Hey, that's great because I remember that family,
Mhm.
and they were not easy to deal with at the beginning because they were so afraid that this wasn't the right decision, right?
Sure.
So they were super skeptical, and so I think that I think that hearing that at the end is really good. Um and I think that if, I think those people just have to get over the fact, right? Because you know you're looking at all the information you have, trying to make the best decision, and you decide to go with an RV. You just hope you're making the right decision at that point, right?
Sure.
Because these other things trump, right? It's like pros and cons. Okay, so house versus an RV, being on my property versus not,
Mhm.
you're weighing all this
Mhm.
stuff out, and you just hope that that you're making the right decision. And I think it's so great for us at the end when we hear that, what, this was absolutely the right decision for us,
Yeah.
for our family. Our kids were able to, continue hanging out with their friends, and whatever. I mean, there are so many reasons why,
Mhm.
for me, that feels so good, to know, because look, we're an integral part of that decision at the end, right? Them regretting or not regretting it.
Right.
So hey,
Right.
and you know what? We took really good care of them. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
or hey, RV Housing Group, man, they were there every step of the way, and when we had issues, they took care of us, and that made us feel so good because we didn't have to wait. We weren't waiting for someone to come out and service the unit because the AC wasn't working properly, or the heat, or whatever it is, right? And so, we're a huge part of their experience, obviously,
Right.
making sure they're getting taken care of in a timely manner. And that's obviously of utmost importance, not
Yeah.
just to me, but to our whole team, as you know. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, man.
That's good. And I was thinking as you were talking, I mean, it's one of the differentiators between us and some of these. You have these companies that pop up all the time. Some smaller companies that want to get in this space, and they want to, the one thing that
Yep.
about RV Housing Group that I think really stands out is that the care of the people that we're working with, and a lot of these smaller companies, they just don't have the bandwidth or the personnel to care for the
Correct.
needs even after the RV is placed. Once it's there, it's like they just kind of set it, and you're like, well, good luck. See you at the end. Hope you don't have any
Yeah.
problems. They just
Right.
don't have the personnel to serve during the whole process, which is something I know you're passionate about. Which
Sure.
is not just about getting the RV there and getting it on the property. It's about their experience throughout the time that the RV is on site and making sure things are
Right.
working. And I've heard you say this before, a lot of these RVs, in some ways are just they're not built for to live in long term, and so there's just a lot of times there's issues with them that need to be, taken care of, and it's
Yeah.
important for us to make sure that we're on top of all those things. So in that regard, I mean, talk about some of the challenges that we've overcome during specific placements. I mean, what are some examples of things that we've had to kind of overcome to make sure that living experience is good for the people we're serving?
Oh, I mean, I can remember one recently where they clogged the toilet and it overflowed, the toilet overflowed into the bathroom and basically rotted the whole floor out in the bathroom.
Man.
And you know, I mean, really not our fault, obviously, but just because it's not our fault doesn't mean it's not our problem,
Mm.
and so we had to get involved there, and golly, it was the next day that we got all of those, we had to replace the subfloor and all that, but we got a tech out there the next day, because hey, they couldn't even really go in the bathroom or they're going to fall through the floor essentially, right? So we got a tech out there the next day, pulled up the subfloors, replaced it all, and they were extremely happy. And obviously, they felt terrible for what happened, but
Right.
it's not, we don't. It's not like we're always asking, "Hey, who did this? Whose fault is it?" Right? Is this your fault or is this our fault? Is it, So
Right.
we're not nickel and dime people in that way. It's just like, look, man, they have an issue. We got to take care of them, right? And that's the choice that every company has to make.
Hmm.
Some business owners, would say, that really is their fault. So we got to make sure we bill them or whatever. And I'm more about, I can see the forest through the trees, right? When we look at our client and tell them, hey, here's all the things that have happened over the last month or 2 months with this client, with this customer, this customer, this customer, this customer, and we can say, listen, at the end of the day, we just want you to know that it matters so much to us to take care of these people.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that's that look, man, and the business that we continue to see, um, on a regular basis is proof, right? I mean, so we can get we can get hung up on, hey, who owes us for that service call, right? $200 here, $200 there. Whose fault really was that, Or we can just take care of people and know that our clients see that and appreciate that, and they
Right.
continue to the business.
Right. Yeah. I love that about what we get to do. And on that note, I wanted to get this might be a little weedsy, but I want to talk about just kind of the feedback process and even how that works, both for like just even for our reps that are listening right now. I know something that you're constantly implementing new strategies and systems to get us better at the feedback loop, even from like the moment an RV is dropped off, making sure we go through a checklist, making sure that we're all on the same page, all the way to when it's.
Yep.
Could you just talk a little bit about that process and how we make sure everything is right when it's there, but also how we kind of protect all parties involved with a good feedback system?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're constantly checking in, right? And I've been known to make phone calls to tenants, and ask for their feedback on my team.
Hmm.
Hey, how did the delivery driver do? Right? Did they give you an orientation? Was it thorough? Do you feel like they were trying to rush you, or do you feel like they really cared and wanted to make sure that you had all the knowledge you needed to have a successful stay in there? Um, so I think it's just communication. We're just always communicating, right? Always asking questions, and we're not just asking questions to hear the answer we want to hear, right?
Right.
We're asking questions to hear the truth. So if there are holes in our system, we want to know that, man. I certainly want to know that, right? And I've had conversations with tenants where they've been very honest with me, and there's been times where it's like, "Ooh, all right, wish that would have been different." Sometimes I will say it's more their perception, because of the emotional state they're in. However, their perception is their reality, right? And so, it just helps me to look. at our systems and processes, and see what we can do to make sure we're always getting positive feedback, right?
Right.
But positive, honest feedback, right? Not
Right.
just, not telling us what we want to hear. So,
Right. Absolutely. A couple more questions for you, Brad. And I think this has been awesome. I'm just curious, what would you want insurance reps to know about the families that we serve? Like if you could talk to them about it, like just knowing because and they're interfacing with them as well, but just from our seat, speak to that rep. And what would you want them to know about either how we serve the clients or about the clients themselves?
well, I mean, we certainly talk to them about this, and we let them know on a regular basis that we care deeply to make sure these people are taken care of. But we can't say it enough. It's like the way that I look at it, and the culture that we have is, hey, when we are speaking to a potential tenant, right, an insured, and they are they're kind of telling us their story. I want you to picture, this is me to the team, right? Picture your mom, your dad, your grandmother, your grandfather, right? Aunt or uncle, some family member that's on the other end of that phone call. And I want you to take care of them exactly how you would take care
Mhm.
of your family, right? Um, and I think that goes such a long way for us, man. It's, we are, um, we're extremely empathetic. We really try to put ourselves in their shoes, um, and just do as good a job as possible of making sure that they're comfortable, that they know that we care about them, that they feel secure in the decision that they're making too,
Mhm.
right? Going back to that, it's certainly not, it's not something that we want to push on people, right?
Mhm.
We want them to really make the decision. We just want to give them the information, right? We'll give them all the information. But if you want to be on your property and and you have your reasons why, we're going to give you all the info and allow you to make the decision. But if you decide to go that route, obviously, hey, we're here to take care of you, and we're going to stay with you through all the way to the end.
Yeah, and you've kind of already covered this a little bit, but just kind of wanted you to close out with this thought as far as like how do we as RV housing group, or even for you personally, how do you measure success beyond the logistics, right? Okay, so you've got this like the success of it happened and the drop off went well, everything's worked out great.
Yeah.
But what is at the end of the day, what does success look like for you beyond operations and logistics?
Um, success for me, you talking about me personally?
Well, I just mean
Or
for you personally as it applies to the business, right? When you're looking at your
oh, okay,
business at the
okay.
end of the day, what do you say we were
Yeah.
successful when
Oh,
blank?
oh, that's easy, man. That's easy. When I hear from our clients that they like working with us the most,
Mhm.
that when they have a need that comes up for on-site housing, there's nobody else that they're thinking about, right?
Mhm.
It's like an automatic trigger. RV housing group is my go-to. That right there, man, is phenomenal. I can't hear that enough. That,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? That's worth more than money to me. Um and I would say that, as well as hearing from the families at the end that, you know what, you guys blew us away with your service,
Mhm.
like and then they'll give specifics. Or, I remember when we had this issue or this issue, and we were taken care of, so quickly, and I could just tell that your team cared. And man, that's why it's in my DNA, dude. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, the money, owning a business and being successful and all those things, and having a nice home, and assets and blah blah blah. That's good, man. But that does not, at least for me, that doesn't bring me joy. It's not really fulfilling. It is so temporal. And but but hearing this kind of feedback from our clients and our customers, man, that right there is what drives me to continue to create and ideate, right,
Mhm.
and try to be better and hire more people, because I'm like, oh, there's a hole here. we got to fill that because if I don't want any holes. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So, and you know that
Yep.
about me, right? I'll continue to hire people,
Right.
and because I want to be the best, man. Like I make no bones about it, and I have told our clients that numerous times, and so they know that about me. But you cannot say that you want to be the best and not back that up with action.
Right. Right. Love it. I love it, dude. I love it hearing your passion come out. When you talk about caring for people, serving people, hospitality, I mean, that's where you come alive, man. That's always been
Yeah,
it for
man.
you and
I
the
love
the
it.
core of this business. Well, I
Yep.
appreciate you, man. Have a great time in San Diego.
Yes, sir.
It's gonna be awesome. What
Will
else you
do.
got going on the rest of this week? Anything fun?
Now, I'm actually going to stay in Cali for a couple days, and
Oh,
as
good.
actually I've never been there before, so that's
Really?
one
As
of
much as
the
you've traveled, I'm
yeah.
surprised that you've never been
I
there.
know, I know. I think it's because it's so far away, but
Other coast.
but yeah, yeah, man. So I'm gonna stay for a couple extra days and check it out. Find the good restaurants, as you know,
Oh, dude,
and
you're such a foodie. That's why I love traveling with you because we always eat good no matter what.
yeah, man. Yeah, yeah. I'll find the best steak for sure, no matter where I'm at. Yeah,
Well, have fun with
yeah.
that, man. Hey, thanks. Good stuff today, man. We'll talk soon.
All right, man. Take care.